everyone, it's Katie Crysdale here from Lakeview Aquatic Consultants. Welcome back to your weekly Aquatic Industry Insider. So this week I'm in a different location. I decided to take the sign that August has been really quiet and fit in a last minute trip to visit a colleague who has an apartment in New York City and an apartment out in Long Island. And so I'm just taking a couple days to kind of think strategically about how the year has been going, plan ahead for 2025, also take some time off and just kind of regroup for the fall semester, which is typically when things are really, really busy, the end of the fiscal year for a lot of organizations. So I've been to New York City a few times, and when I was thinking about what I wanted to do on this particular trip, Coney Island came to mind almost immediately because of the multiple drowning fatalities that have occurred out there this summer that have come up in different news articles that I featured in our weekly Ghost newsletter. My colleague here in New York City kind of laughed and said, you know, you're really a pool person if you're selecting your tourist sites based on drowning and beaches. But I've never been to Coney Island. I'm a huge fan of Ocean City, Maryland, Atlantic City, New Jersey, that boardwalk, beach, summer vibe. And so I went out there today. I took the train from Manhattan down to Coney Island. And I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts that I had. So my first impression of Coney Island today, I got there around 11 a.m. on a weekday. It was pretty quiet. It was primarily locals from what I could tell in terms of families set up on the beach, people who had showed up with towels and bathing suits to spend a day on the ocean, so to speak, of wide variety of different demographics, different types of families. There was all different, ages, races, skin colors, backgrounds, religion in terms of the way people depicted their modesty or their clothing. And so the first observation I want to make about Coney Island and the beaches there and what could have led to some of these recent drowning fatalities is that a lot of the individuals that I saw using the water this morning were from maybe countries or cultures who don't have the same access to open water that we do here in North America, or specifically on a beach like Coney Island, where it is pretty calm. It's not heavy surf by any stretch, but it is the open ocean. The second observation I wanted to make about the different people I saw at Coney Island today was that a lot of them were definitely unprepared to go swimming, i.e. they didn't bring a bathing suit or they didn't own a bathing suit. So I went out in a summer dress and I took a bathing suit in my backpack and I was prepared to do a quick change in a bathroom stall or an outhouse if I wanted to go in the water. I wasn't sure how clean the water would be. And I didn't end up going in the water past my feet, but I noticed that there were a lot of tourists or even locals who hadn't prepared necessarily by bringing a bathing suit. And so they were wading in up to their knees, up to their waist in the clothing that they went to Coney Island in. So I saw a range of different fabrics and clothing, everything from jeans rolled up to women in conservative clothing, so ankle-length skirts. If you're Jewish and Haredi or Orthodox Jewish, I saw lots of Muslim women. I saw people who modesty is a paramount concern. And so they were definitely going into the water with their clothing on over a bathing suit or just in their clothing. And there's nothing wrong with that if it's done safely. But my second observation was very much that people were wearing clothes into the water. And it's not intended to be a judgment. If somebody feels comfortable in their body with it being covered, it's not intended to be a judgment if somebody can't afford a bathing suit. But it was definitely my impression from the people that I was watching that they had not brought the equipment or the supplies to go in the water. So typically what I think of as a beach day, let's say in Maryland, Ocean City, people show up with a blanket and a towel and a change of clothes and sunscreen. And this felt like a lot of people who just went to Coney Island for the day and they were going to do different things. Maybe they were going to go to Nathan's and get a hot dog. Maybe they were going to ride the rides at Luna Park. Maybe they were going to go to the aquarium, but they didn't have a lot of bathing attire or preparation to go swimming. The third thing that comes to mind when thinking about the safety at Coney Island and the beaches there, and why it may have precipitated some of these drowning fatalities earlier this summer, is that there was really porous education, in my opinion, about the safe water zones. So there were lifeguards stationed at certain bays. The entire beach has these numbered bays on signage. The lifeguards were stationed, I would say, in the center bays near the amusement parks, near the food concessions and the shops on the boardwalk. The entire length of the boardwalk is not developed like somewhere like Ocean City or Atlantic City. It is a pretty small boardwalk in 2024, and so the lifeguards were primarily stationed in those bays surrounding those high density areas. And then the rest of the beach had these flags that were marked no swimming, but they were so far back from the water, they were hundreds of feet, hundreds of meters set back from the water, that if you descended the beach at the water line, you would not have seen these flags. They were over the crest of sand. And in many, many areas, I saw people setting up their blankets, their chairs, their kids going out to swim, not just waiting, but to swim in areas that were clearly marked no swimming, but it was a struggle if you were on the water's edge to see those no swimming flags set back on the sand. My third opinion on this is that although New York City Parks and Recreation, which is my understanding, this organization with the green leaf logo, although they have done their due diligence in terms of putting in the flags, and although there were good signs around the boardwalk stating to swim between the flags, to swim in front of a lifeguard, there was no actual enforcement or no secondary education beyond that. There was nobody patrolling and advising people to move. There was no additional education. I'm not necessarily saying that you have to do that, but it has been my experience in other beach areas that I've visited in the US over the years, from Florida to Maryland to New Jersey, that there may be that secondary or tertiary effort. The point of this video is not to throw rocks at anyone or to place any judgment on these young people that went swimming either outside of lifeguarded hours or outside of lifeguarded areas. Drowning is a tragedy regardless of why or how it happens, but I definitely wanted to go out to this beach for myself to understand what could have precipitated these deaths in what is otherwise pretty shallow water. From what I could see, there were not rip currents, there were not massive amounts of boat traffic and jet skis like I would think of in more like the Delmarva area. But it was very instructive, as I've said, that there were many people not in a bathing suit, swimming in their own clothes. There were lots of people who didn't necessarily understand or adhere to the lifeguard zones. And then there was also the factor that I think people just were not prepared to swim. It may have been a spontaneous decision. I'll get my clothes wet and they'll air dry while we're walking on the boardwalk. And so there may not be the preparation or the education. And then another piece that I should add is there were lots of different people of different cultures, backgrounds, and lots of different languages spoken as I was walking along the beach areas. And so I think it's very likely that the signage that is posted is not accessible to all of the languages that patronize that particular beach area. There was some signage that I did note. There were efforts to provide signage in some other languages. I believe I saw Spanish, I believe I saw Russian, but if you don't fit into one of those demographics, you're not going to have signage that is available to you. Let me know in the comments below if you've been to Coney Island. What did you think about it? We'll see you again in the next video.